Good evening and welcome to the November 4th, 2019, oh my goodness, meeting of the Reston Community Center Board of Governors. The meeting will now be called to order. First order of business is the approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Next order of business is approval of the minutes and board actions.
So moved. Second.
The board actions of the board minutes, first of all, of October 7th. The second, it's been moved in second. Okay, the next order of business is approval of.
We want to vote?
Vote on the minutes.
Vote on the minute.
Vote on the minutes.
Aye.
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 You. Okay. Next order of business is approval of the October 7th board actions.
So moved.
Second. Been moved and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Next order of business is the chair's remarks. We're gonna miss you.
Thank you.
You were my right hand, even though you're on my left side.
I mean left anyway.
You know, it's hard. It seems like you've been here for longer. And it's like, well, you're just gonna go to camp. That's the way we'll look at it. You'll go to camp and you'll come. I have I will be talking about aging until I turn to dust. So this is.
Hopefully it'll be a long time.
So this is a Maya Angelou look at it, and except for the last two lines in this poem, I agree. It's called On Aging. When you see me sitting quietly like a sack on a shelf, don't think I need your chattering, I'm listening to myself. Hold, stop, don't pity me. Hold, stop your sympathy. Understanding if you got it, otherwise I'll do without it. When my bones are stiff and aching and my feet won't climb the stair, I will only ask one favor. Don't bring me a rocking chair. When you see me walking, stumbling, don't study and get it wrong, 'cause tired don't mean lazy, and every goodbye ain't gone. I'm the same person I was back then, a little less hair, a little less chin, a lot less lungs and much less wind. But ain't I lucky? I can still breathe in. And I said, except for those last two things, because doing those two concerts, I realized that I could still breathe enough to sing. And that was a good thing. The next order of business is introduction of visitors.
And we have visitors.
We have visitors.
So this is our opportunity to formally thank Michelle. Our visitors are from Herndon, Reston, Fish, Friendly, Instant, Sympathetic Help. You would introduce yourselves.
Okay, I'm Bob Reed. I'm the president of the board, and this is Mary Saunders, our executive director since June of this year, and we're terrifically happy that Mary has decided to step in and replace our prior executive director, who's doing a great job. Mary's
Fantastic.
doing great work.
Well, welcome.
Welcome.
Our tradition, for most of you remember this, and for those who don't, when a board member is leaving us for any reason, is to give them the privilege of identifying a nonprofit Reston organization to which we will make a contribution of $100 per year of service, up to $1,000 max. Yeah. That was already been there for us. But Michelle Moyer, who is leaving us after this evening's first meeting, you don't have to leave the room, but is leaving the board, has asked that her years of service be recognized by giving a contribution to Reston Herndon Fish. So if Michelle and Bev would take their places next to our guests.
Yeah, hold a big check.
Oh, yeah, the big check. I like the big check.
And Karen, if you have your phone, if you'll also take a picture.
There we go. There we go.
You say church a lot.
So on behalf of Michelle, we are pleased to contribute $600 to Reston Herndon Fish.
Oh, thank you so much. This will mean a lot to a lot of people.
I'm just impressed with the work you do on it, so thank
Thank
you
you.
all.
And this is our 50th year of continuous service.
Oh,
So I was gonna say, in 1969, when Reston Fish was started, because somebody's house burned down and neighbors decided to help that person, okay, and out of that grew the organization. At about the same time, in 1969, Reston Interfaith was founded by a minister in Reston who went around and tried to get, a housing program going in the community, right? So both organizations are 50 years old and have not, had any interruptions in that service for 50 years. So so if we get this in our 50th year, that's special, even more special than just being here tonight. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much.
Thank you.
And you're welcome, we'll keep the check.
We were just kidding.
We recycled. We made the contribution.
The real one, but it had the fun.
But please stay, and you don't have to.
We have our board meetings and we know how they go.
Okay.
Take a lot more.
They do. Well, thank you very much for the great work that you do. And Michelle,
Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you. Thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
It's gonna stay up every night.
we have
Took me 3 days.
a gift from us to you.
I did.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes, it's also, yes, you may open it.
Not a
It's
apple
also
bread. Don't get me
traditional.
heavy.
It is heavy.
It's apple bread.
Better than fruitcake.
And they better not be fruit.
Wait it up.
Oh, okay. And we'll finish signing your card.
The just-in-time delivery, right?
Right, exactly.
Press the button.
Oh, it's the
Yeah,
battery.
just take a-
Batteries included.
Sorry.
You need help?
Well, maybe I do. I'm just afraid of.
Oh,
Wow. To Michelle Moyer, with thanks for her timely service, RCC Board of Governors. Thank you all.
Thank you. And, I think, aside from her grace and intellect and capacity as a board member, her leadership, Michelle's service was so timely because Michelle brings her perspective as a user of RCC and did so during a period when we were contemplating a really significant capital project, the pool renovation project, and collectively, of course, everybody on the board participated in all that, but I think more than any of us, Michelle was involved on a deep level, not just with our planning processes and our leadership to that project, but also in engagement with the people most affected by that project.
For better or for worse.
For better or worse, and was always so careful about managing those relationships in ways that would be positive and productive for the community, for those individuals who swim with Michelle. Very thoughtful about always keeping me apprised of anything that was maybe needed to be headed off at the pass in terms of getting facts to people or to constituencies in a timely way. And it just would not have happened as smoothly and effectively as it has happened without your leadership. And I can't think of a moment in our history when your particular skills were more needed, not just from the perspective of being a user of the pool, but having your understanding and knowledge of human relationships and managing those effectively was outstanding. And contributing to the hiring process of our new aquatics director. So long after your monthly board service is not a presence in our lives, you certainly gave us a great and lasting contribution in helping us identify Matt and bringing him back to Reston.
Yeah, he's a gem, so
Yeah.
that's a real highlight.
So we thank you from the bottom of
Well,
our
thank you.
hearts.
And I appreciate having served and with all of you. I'm really honored and have learned a lot individually as well as collectively. But also I've learned an awful lot about the staff and really learned to appreciate the creativity and dedication of the staff members and of course led by you. So thank you all.
Thank you.
And I won't be a stranger.
Well, stay put because it's a heavy-duty meeting tonight.
Okay.
All right. Got a lot more service to get.
Okay. The next order of business is Mr. Bowie, the ad hoc accreditation.
All right, so we met on October the 14th. Bill and Vicky, Lila and a couple others, Ricky Marion and Karen and John, to go over the progress that's been made so far on the documents and the work that's required for CAPRA accreditation. This is something that's been in the works for over 2 years. We are nearing the finish line on this, as it will be submitted in December at some point. So this meeting was basically to go over the progress made, and if you really want the detail of what occurred, you really need to dive into the self-study supporting documentations to find out the references where everything needs to be associated. This is going to be a game changer for the RCC in terms of really putting it on the map and meeting national standards. There are some 25,000 park systems in the country, and there's only 110 that have CAPRA accreditation today. So it is a very, very prestigious. And I went back to look at some of the videos recently of people that have gained their CAPRA accreditation, and a number of them were bragging about, we met 147, and we met 148, or 150 of the 151 standards, and they were very proud of that. And so,
As they should be.
as they should be, but there's a standard to be set, and I'm proud that I've been the leader of an organization that is the only organization in the country that's gotten a perfect score each and every time. And
So far.
being the chairman of this committee, Miss Executive Director, there's no pressure on you now to make sure that we become
Right.
the next organization that gets all 151 standards correctly.
That's our goal.
We will be working through this over the next 6 weeks to finalize and be ready to submit. But there is a motion that we do need to move forward tonight with the full Board of Governors. There are actually there's 5 things in the motion. The first item is to approve the updated policy framework document. The second is to approve the RCC master plan document. The third is the approval of the recreation program plan. The fourth is the approval of the agency obtaining the county executive support for application to CAPRA for accreditation, which is not mandatory. We will inform the county executive. I did speak to him today. He's on board with this and very supportive of our efforts. And fifth was the approval of the agency approving CAPRA accreditation if the county executive approves the support that's needed, which he is going to do. So that is the motion on the floor, but it is certainly open to discussion for any one of those items if you've got questions.
So I just want to say that in terms of the two plans, until we started pursuing CAPRA accreditation, we, from a planning perspective, only worked on a 5-year strategic plan. The master plan document that you have in front of you and the recreation program plan are really formalizing our standard approach. They are putting into a formal written vehicle the approach that we have taken to how we execute what we think the priorities are based on the strategic plan, and then the fill in the space that the strategic plan isn't directly addressing on the basis of our mission and vision and our community, our ongoing annual community engagement. So after this first accreditation process is successfully concluded, we will align the update to the master plan and the recreation program plan with the strategic planning calendar. But since we have not had formal documents before this to describe a master plan and a recreation and program plan as they are defined by the field, we put these together, and in the context of the CAPRA standards, these two plans also need board approval, and that's why they are in front of all of you tonight. So your motions stacked in this way so that we can accomplish that approval process at the same time that we continue to move forward with accreditation. The policy framework, similarly, we will align with a 5-year calendar with the review of the policy and user manual and the strategic plan and the master plan and the recreation plan. The policy framework, those of you who were around in 2016, is the reduction of, at that point in time, some 30-odd years of ad hoc policy development to a more structured framework for policy guidance and direction, as opposed to making rules. The procedural rules that we have are all contained in our policy and user manual, and they are also expressed internally in terms of how we operate through the operating guidance memoranda. And the operating guidance memoranda sample that you all got are the ones that are the most immediately expressive of the policy framework. So you don't have all the OGMs, and we call them OGMs so that we can distinguish them from the PMs that the county uses. They say procedural memoranda, so we wanted a separate taxonomy so that we could easily refer to our own agency's procedural guidance. So that's really what the relationships are between the groups of documents that you got. Probably the other 90% of the accreditation package, as you go through those standards and look at each one, either all those line items are what are called evidence of compliance. And so the pieces of evidence that tell the CAPRA visitors that you are in fact functioning at this level with these kinds of structures in place are either governing documents like our Memorandum of Understanding, or their county requirements that the county applies to all county agencies, or they might even be in terms of land use planning that relate to parks and recreation. They are land use documentation arising either from the comprehensive plan for Fairfax County or the Reston Master Plan for Fairfax County, which is a land use document, or the Park Authority's land use plan for the Park Authority's properties within the jurisdiction that Small District 5 is for us. So I just wanted to give you an idea of how all those different pieces fit together. I didn't think you wanted to read our cash reconciliation procedures.
Not a lot of it.
I assure you we have them. But these operating guidance memoranda are the ones that connect most to your policy framework. The only thing that really changed in your policy framework, you made a change, as you recall, this year to the size of the capital project reserve from $3 million to $3.5 million, and that is spelled out in the policy framework. So that is really the only substantive edit that was made to the policy framework.
Bill, did you actually make a motion?
Yes.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Done. My report, that is the longest report I've ever done on this board.
Great.
Thank God.
Lori?
How you doing?
Successfully done.
All right. Thank you. So we will, I'll send a note to Brian tomorrow and also alert the other deputy county executives with intersecting points with these kinds of processes, and we will proceed. We've presented to the CAPRA visitors 2 possible date timeframes for the visit this spring. One is in April, that includes the Founders Day Saturday event, and the second is in May during the Northern Virginia Fine Arts Festival weekend. We suggested to the CAPRA visitors that we prefer the May date range, just because the scope of that festival is so impressive, and we have a significant role to play for it this year. Our performance art presentation is going to be the Bread and Puppet Theater from New England, so that's going to be very cool because those are really like monumental puppets. So it's going to create some really amazing visuals. So we'll, as soon as we know when the visit dates are, we will alert all of you and proceed. Yeah.
And I'm sorry if this is in here, but what's the process by which sort of we have a discussion with them about what we're presenting? Like, is there a back and forth where they can go over everything and say, you're missing this, this, and this, and we get a second shot at
So
it? Like, what's that?
the sequence of events is now we'll proceed with the completion of the evidence of compliance inventory of documents. We'll make a formal application to CAPRA, and once you make that formal application, they send you the means by which you can upload your inventory of evidence and all the attendant documentation through a portal, a web portal that they have instituted at long last after years of people having to go to an outside platform and all that kind of good stuff. They will then review the evidence of compliance self-study, is what it's called. Along with that inventory that you all have a copy of, there is a narrative that describes in more robust text, but not too robust text, what each standard, how it applies to RCC, and what, a little bit of commentary on the documents that are the evidence. They will analyze that, they'll take a cursory look at it, and they will get back to us and tell us if something critical is missing. There are critical required standards that you have to address, and then there are, out of the 151, you can miss as many as 11 of the non-critical standards, but still get accreditation. Of course, our goal is 151.
That's the only score.
It's the only score.
There is
I
no
think
other
you should go for
score.
152.
I know, seriously. We do think that we're going to be helpful because we have such a robust arts component, and that's a more unusual kind of focus area for traditional Parks and Rec. So hopefully we'll give them some ideas for standard 152 and standard 153. And then they identify any shortcomings to us. You get a 10-day period to address those shortcomings by uploading additional material. And then once that 10-day period closes, they will tell you if you're not ready. They won't, because we will have to pay for the visitor's visit and their housing and hospitality costs for 3 days. and their travel costs to get here and go. And then you also, the first time you pursue accreditation, you also have to pay for the chair of your visitor group, your 3 members. You have to pay for the chair to present at the National Recreation and Park Association conference in September. And that's where the chair will present the findings of the visitors and formally move that you be accredited. That conference in 2020 is going to be in Orlando, thank goodness. It's not going to be in California. So that will be, we will be paying for someone from RCC and the chair of the visitor committee to get to that CAPRA. It's called a hearing. And then once that happens, they give you a tremendous volume of material to help announce to the world that you are so freaking amazing, and and lots of decals to put on the doors of your buildings, and it is something. I mean, really, we have been working on it for 2 years, and I feel very confident that we will have, because we have been working with the Park Authority, and Herndon Community Center is also accredited, so we're not, just going on the basis of our own assessment of our quality. We've got good peer groups assisting us, and so I'm very confident that we will achieve accreditation. And if we are able to do that, it'll accomplish 2 things for us. It's a way of certifying to your community that you are practicing at the zenith of best practices for the field. And it is a way for us to establish a systematic inventory of structures and guidance for anybody who comes after us. So you have to do it every 5 years. And one of the things we've made a staff commitment to is doing an internal assessment in alignment with our January meeting every year to just say, what are the areas in the standards list that we need to shore up, or have circumstances changed? Is there something that's radically different in terms of our community landscape or context, and then make those adjustments and do it each year so that by the time you get to year 5, you won't be like, we gotta put all this stuff together again. So it's a very labor-intensive process and a very time-consuming process, but well worthwhile. And Bill Bowie has been the burr under the RCC saddle to achieve this, and I think mainly because he knows that from a reality basis, we practice this way, so we might as well get the credit for it.
Does a burr under a saddle avoid a horse? Or I wondered about that.
Probably the horse.
That is definitely
If it's annoying to the horse, it's a problem for the saddle. If it's a problem for the saddle, it's a deep issue for the rider. It's all connected.
So basically, all that's to be said is that you get basically 3 bites at the apple. They will give you three feedbacks as to where you are in the process. If they don't think that you should come out of the gate, they'll tell you that early.
Yeah.
So.
And also during the visit itself, there are some benchmark experiences that every agency has. So there will be a reception for you all, for our county partners, for our community partners, to meet the visitors and to sort of celebrate that you're ready for this. We will stand up a schedule for the visitors to interview board, for the visitors to interview staff. We have to set up a working room for them with computer access so they can literally go through in real depth the documentation that you've provided. We will give them a tour of the community, of our 2 facilities, obviously, but also the geography of Small District 5. And then we anchored the visit with that Founders Day event or the Fine Arts Festival event, because those are both key springtime community events that we're a big part of, and give them an opportunity to see the collaborative work that we do with community partners in action. So it'll be a full 3-day schedule, and once we develop it, you'll all be aware of it and where your parts in it will
Will they be here during a board meeting?
No,
Typically not.
no, because we want them to see
The best of
how
our
we
secrets.
serve. We want them to see how we serve the community in real time.
Right.
And although you all serve the community in real time, I venture to guess there's a lot of similarity from one board meeting to the next.
More exciting things to look at.
Right, well, there's
Which they will.
a lot of the
They will.
evidence, if you look on that list, it says specifically what the evidence is. And a lot of that evidence is your documents, is,
Most of it is your document.
right,
A lot of it, yeah.
right.
Is there a dues or something that?
We are members of the National Recreation and Park Association. You do pay an accreditation fee. You know, our application fee is being waived. That whole $100 we're gonna save because they really want to get people to do this. This is a way of bringing up the field. And then you pay a set fee for the accreditation itself. I think it's either $1,000 or $2,000. I can't remember. So it's not a cheap process. I think all in, you will spend somewhere between $5 and $8 grand for the first time out of the gate. When you become
Not counting the staff work.
Not-
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the first time we did it, we had 5 full-time staffers for 3 years.
Yeah, this is, it's an
But
impressive.
it pulls together and it's a
Yeah, you got nothing to do with it, right?
management
It is.
After you
like
leave
being a
here.
management.
It's going to be
Yes.
a
Without a
massive
consultant.
gift to subsequent boards, to subsequent partners, and to subsequent executive
It
directors.
gives you an ongoing tool.
Right.
And it's an ongoing tool that you
Right.
can refer to and keep
It
going.
is.
So
And even after the visit,
it does a lot more than.
even after the visit, you don't know. You won't actually find out until you get to Orlando
Right.
whether you get.
Oh.
Yeah, but I think you can
But
tell.
they have a sense.
You got a feeling,
You
but
can tell.
it's not
based
official.
on-
You're still on pins and needles because you
Are there
just don't
many
know.
applicants that are refused?
I don't think they want you to get to the conference.
I don't think you ever get to that
before
point where
that.
they're gonna turn you down. They kind of
As you said,
discourage
it's
you
three
from
choices.
applying and trying again until you're ready.
Right.
Bill, is that part of, I was reading, just going through these minutes, because I'm trying to get more in my head. Is that the red team you were talking about before you submitted, that you said, in part of it, you said you
Yes,
put
we
in?
do need a red
Do
team.
you know, like, are there people you guys have in mind? Not
Yeah,
that we need to
we
know.
do.
'Cause
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, it has to be
No,
somebody who really knows this.
no, we'll try to get our friends at the Park Authority to look at our inventory and pick out whatever it is they think might be a weakness or need some support, more support, or a gap. So, yeah. And we will,
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
yeah. And we have basically, from the time we submit the from the time the visit is decided, from the date of the visit, back 10 weeks, you have to have your material submitted. So they have to have 10 weeks before the visit date minimum to review the materials in your self-study. So we have time, you know, the calendar for what we'll do is now, after tonight's meeting, I'll make a formal, you know, request of Brian Hill to support us. I'll alert Kirk and Tisha Deegan, who's the Deputy County Executive for our agency, probably also Rachel Flynn because of the planning aspect, Kathy Muse and Kathy Spage, that's purchasing and personnel, because those are the big areas of the rules, you know, parts of this. And then we'll go through the self-study with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that everything that we need is available, not just through a link, but in a hard copy reference as well. And create a PDF of those materials so that we have those. If the link fails,
There's something to fall back on.
yeah, you want to be able to say, well, here it is, you know. And then we'll talk to our friends at the Park Authority about a time frame that we can have them look at the material. We don't want them to feel pressured, but give a reasonable period of time for them to do that, address gaps that they may identify. And then when we've gone through all of that, we'll begin uploading in the portal the whole self-study package and the evidence.
Okay.
And then we'll plan the visit and have the visit and go to Orlando and,
Next will be the Nova.
oh man, that's the next director's tour. I mean, I will say, it's the last thing I want to say about this, but having pulled all this together for the last couple of years and working, and you have to work with every cost center in this agency because it addresses every aspect, every functional aspect. And, I think you guys are fantastic about recognizing the skill and the talent and the commitment and the passion of this staff, but they are just magnificent. They're really magnificent. And even staff who have left us, we put Eileen Boone on a contract to help us write and create the master plan document and the recreation plan document. And Barbara Wilmer, who you remember for 5 years was,
How are they doing?
They're great. They're doing great. Loving Florida. Happy as clams down there. So yeah, people are really, it's not easy to do this. It's sometimes, I will say that I have bored myself beyond belief writing. You can't imagine how stimulating writing an operating guidance memorandum about reconciliation of cash receipts on a daily basis is. Woo, that's exciting. And you have to translate from Renata's article-less English into English with the, that, those articles in it. Yeah, I'm very excited about maybe not having to write OGMs for a few years. But
Good.
You've done good.
there you go. The whole team. The whole team. Preference poll.
Preference poll.
Now we're at the preference poll. We'll hear from Mr. Bill Keith.
Well, we had another successful preference poll process. 5 candidates, 3 Paul Thomas, Lori Dodd, Beverly Caution were the 3 top candidates. So they will be installed here in a few minutes. And interesting, it's been tied to RCC for the preference poll process for 20 plus years. And it really is a challenge to try to bring participation levels up, and I was so pleased to see we've gone from 7.2% to 8.4%.
Hey, we beat the Democratic primary participation. So, very proud of all of you. You went out and beat the Bushes and you got deeper penetration by about 1.5%.
But it's interesting, Lila and all the staff have thought this through in so many ways to try to increase participation, and it's just a difficult, and I think 8.4% is a pretty darn good number when I remember way back, it wasn't even near that.
Yeah.
So,
We used to do it with card tables set up at the grocery stores in the village centers, and we would be ecstatic if 200 or 300 people cast ballots. So this is very good.
so 16% increase. Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Matt.
I started to do that math and I gave up.
From 7.2 to 8.4?
Yeah.
There you go.
We did increase our commercial ballot, a big discussion years ago, how to be more inclusive with the commercial community. We thought of 100 different ways, and we're now at 61, which is an increase of 14.
It's a high water mark.
That's right. That's
That's a
over
huge-
20%.
Yeah.
Over 20%. I can do it off the top of my
That
head.
was achieved mainly because of Karen Goff's suggestion that rather than, we had been using the CoStar generated list of businesses that identified by business name, and Karen suggested that maybe we purchase a mailing list of all the business addresses and use occupant. And I think that actually significant.
Voted too many times, I think.
Well, we don't care. We don't care who.
Yeah, the ballots are getting delivered now.
Yeah.
They're getting delivered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we vastly reduced the number of returned ballots because of a mismatch between
The named
the
Yeah.
recipient.
named recipient
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
and the address.
Actually,
So kudos to Karen.
Was there
for-
any change in the proportion of votes done by computer, done by paper ballots?
That's in your
It says it
report.
right there.
Yeah.
Broken down here.
And it actually went in the opposite direction of the trend lines. It had been trending to a roughly 50-50, but it backed off this time to more 60-40, I think. I forget the exact numbers. But it was, that's interesting. It'll be interesting to see if that continues or if it was just an anomaly this year. Prior to this year, it had been inching up more online each year to getting close to half and half. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
There were no invalid ballots. I thought that was interesting.
That was
Yeah,
very
it's
also
good.
another
That was
first.
a very good
Unless you
thing.
had the same number of.
It was like,
They can.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
bizarre, to have the exact same
ballots,
number
yeah.
of ballots dropped in the Hunters Woods ballot box as in the Lake Ann ballot box. The big thing for you to give us advice about, Dick mentioned to me after the candidates forum that he thought that people should see the candidates forum before the voting begins. So we looked at how could that be facilitated, and really the only way we could stand that up and be assured of that happening would be to shorten the voting period from 3 weeks to 2 weeks and put the forum in that first week after Labor Day so that people have a chance to see the forum and then vote. So,
If I may, because I was part of that conversation, we were discussing that just sort of casually. And afterwards, I thought, so the upside of that is that people will have like seen people speak. The downside is people might just react to the sophistry of what they heard and not actually take the time to read the background. And so I'm actually
That's
not,
democracy.
which I understand. I'm just saying that there's an argument to be made that by putting it early, but not before, like not like on the first day or just before, but putting it sort of early in the process, day 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that you encourage more thoughtful consideration and less knee-jerk reaction. It occurred to me at the time. I just thrown that out.
yeah, I don't know, I think
I think the 3 weeks is worth something.
And do we know how,
Right.
it seems to me that when the ballot first comes in the door, you would get a flurry of them returned right as they come in.
that's
I
true.
don't know.
Yeah.
Most
if
of
we
the
track what we
voting,
receive.
the heaviest period of voting occurs at the outset and
And then
at the
at the deadline.
conclusion.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I think it would be better to have the speeches before so that there is more of a public awareness before the ballot hits the mailbox, because so many pieces of mail go into that circular
Well, it's
file.
worth a try. Let's make it
But
an
if you can do it
experimental.
without shortening the voting
Yeah, why
period down
can you
to
add
we
a
have-
week on to the end?
The problem with that is we need time for the process to close, and then there is a process by which the board item gets submitted, and that takes time as well. So it really has to end when it ends. You have to have you have to give the Hunter Mill District Supervisor staff time to manage their side of the appointment process. So, and honestly, I think, given the pattern of voting that's occurred over the last 10 years, I almost think you might increase participation if the time frame was shortened.
Yeah.
I think that middle week
Yeah.
is pretty worthless. Nothing happens. And what
Well,
we've
we can
used
always
it
revert
for,
back.
what we used the middle week for the last 10 years, has been to put the candidate forum out there, so to sort of poke up the interest and make sure that people are focused on participation at the tail end. So, you know, from a mechanics perspective, your option is, and because of the Labor Day holiday, I don't think there's any value in bumping it in that direction. Nobody will be around, nobody's paying attention, it's just not worth it at that point. So, you know, I think I think we maybe want to give it a try and see if scheduling the forum in that first week and then opening the voting after the forum for 2 weeks, if that has any impact.
I would know there's an increasing number of people who travel in September.
Yeah. Right.
And so if shortening the period, you may lose some people who are simply not going to be in town. Or
Well,
have
give someone a key and tell them
To give you the code that you need to do it online, even if you're
They do it
sitting
online.
on
Now,
a
you
local
can
bed.
do it online from wherever you
Wherever you
are.
are.
But we have to have the mail in
You need to have the physical piece of mail. right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't get your code. You can only get it from getting it in the mail or coming and obtaining a provisional ballot at our desk at Hunter's Woods or Lake Inn. And I am very glad you're contributing, but you can't actually vote on this until you're a seated member. Just, okay, yeah. So you guys need to, I think, give us some direction.
By the way,
Do you need a motion for it? or-
You
We need a
can,
motion for the committee.
we have the motion of the committee report.
Yeah, have we finished discussing
Well, I
it?
ask one other question. I mean, usually isn't there going to be a
There'll be another-
full committee
Yeah,
convened?
right.
And maybe they should think about it and come back with
Yeah.
it,
Yes.
rather than
Well,
voting on it.
I agree with that, that's what I was gonna say.
Yes. So I
But
move
we
that
have
we
to-
accept the
like, do
report.
we have-
Second.
Yeah, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay,
Okey-dokey.
next order of business. The board member input on activities, and since you're living up, you go first.
All right, I will keep this short and sweet. Attended the Public Art Reston annual event, which was great fun with the unveiling. It was just different energy with that, which was very exciting. The underpass work. Reston Historic Trust home tour, always lots of fun. And then yesterday, my husband and I volunteered with the Hunters Woods Coalition cleanup, which was organized by Hunter Woods Coalition, but it was a nice mix. It was people from our church, but also the condos near here and some of the businesses, but also some residents from the Hunters Woods, and just huge cleanup, and they were very well organized. You always like to have it well organized if you're gonna go be a volunteer. Like the Thanksgiving thing, just
Yeah.
tell me what I gotta do. So, very well done. That's it.
There we go.
The Public Art Reston event, various PTSA meetings,
The Do It Your Way
the
half
Do It Your Way
Uh,
0.5K, which Lila and I were two of the celebrity starters. And so the 0.5K was a lot of fun and raised good money for the Salt Lake PTSA food pantry, which that was really good to see. And then aside from that, just a ton of baseball. And marching band. Just got back Saturday night from Lynchburg for a marching band competition. If you want to discourse about my Lynchburg experience, we can talk when the camera's not rolling.
Those band kids, you always think they're regular.
Lots of meetings, man. Lots of meetings. But the thing that I am doing over there, yesterday, today, tomorrow, and Thursday is working with the site selection committee for the 2023 Senior Olympics. They are here, and we are touring them around the county, showing them our facilities, and hopefully we'll get.
Cool.
These are preliminary, but they did select to come see us, so we are working with them to try to see what we can do, and if we do, it'll be bigger. It'll be a third bigger than the police and fire.
Wow.
Very exciting.
And other stuff to be continued.
That's in our way for 5 weeks. We've got our good dose of rock and roll music from Weston. Berkshires, Massachusetts. Wonderful concerts. Did lots of hiking, touring around. Missed RCC.
I saw the Ebury Choir. I think I pronounced their name right. They were very entertaining. I decided to spare you the spread of whatever disease had me coughing all month and missed a public art. And one other one.
And we all thank you.
You're welcome.
Most of October, I went to the Western History Association conference in Las Vegas, which was very interesting. That was a good week. And then we came home, and there was a little thing called the World Series and playoffs going on. And I must say, I am a fan, and I think I watched every single game, all of it. So,
babies,
Yeah.
babies, yeah.
so
The grandpa.
I know the grandpa shirt. That's a
Yeah.
Oh, it's cute.
But I did go to see the RCP performance of the Gentleman's on Love and Murder.
Uh-huh.
It was a farce, but it was the most elaborate farce. Really good singing. I was absolutely amazed. The lead was terrific.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what I did in October.
I enjoyed the concert from the Georgian group. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. And
They were so adorable.
they
They
were.
were so.
Got me reading all about Georgia because I didn't know
Yeah.
much about that country or that region. Involved with Halloween planning.
What was Hannah?
She was a zombie. No, she was the
This is
Grim
great.
Reaper.
Grim
Oh.
Made my day. A zombie Grim Reaper. But anyway, yeah.
Deep in character.
And joined my classes over at the Art Center. And that's it.
So I had to remember, I had to write them down, I forgot last time. I did the Reston Historic Trust home tour, so every year it's always interesting to see the array of homes in Reston. New, old, high-end, low-end, it's really, there really is a place for everyone in Reston, and I think the home tour tries to do a good job of showing all the different things in the different neighborhoods, which is kind of neat. I also participated in the Southgate Community Center Community Day, which was a wonderful day, and thank you RCC for the stage and helping out. For those of you who haven't been over there, I would say just check it out. It's very much an integral part of Reston, but it's a community that was kind of forgotten for a long time by a lot of people, and the community center leader, Ricardo, is phenomenal. Like, just reaches out and just said, there's so many people from the community that have just volunteered for a little bit, and then you get so committed that they help out. The community day, they had healthcare providers, information about all the things that are available in Fairfax County, some that cost and some that are free of charge. So they're out there with tables, they had Zumba dancing, they had arts and crafts for the kids, health. Yeah, the bouncing houses, just a lot of stuff. And really, even within that little community, you'd see the diversity. It was quite neat. And it was also neat to hear all the, you see it most time in Reston anyway, but all the different languages. I was around to see all the tables, and I was listening to something, I was like, I could understand some of the Spanish, but I'm not listening to Spanish. It was totally, it was either Farsi or not. I'm not sure which one it was. I've heard it before, but I was like, wow, it was just interesting, that community, and just people just having a great day. It was quite enjoyable. I also did the Arts Fairfax luncheon, which is always nice for someone who, my parents took me through arts my whole life, and it's just something we did. I didn't realize it's part of my life, and then when you see that is such an integral part, and it should be a part of everyone's life, it's really neat to see how people give of their time, their commitment, and just their love for art. So it's always neat to see that. And I think that is everything I did. Just a couple of nighttime programs I really wanted to go to, but there's another little pesky thing sometimes called jobs that I have to forget. But that is it. And with a lot of babysitting, which I do not like.
Grandbabies.
Grandbaby sitting for free. Lots of help.
Isn't that
Did that big
No, I mean, some can be costly. So far, no colds or anything. It's just a lot of hugs, so it's well worth every second.
Okay, I went to that very cold, very windy night. We were down for the public arts ribbon cutting
Yeah.
at the underground.
That was fun.
That night, yeah.
Mhm. Were you there?
No.
It was
I thought that-
really cold. It was really cold. And then the public art rest and reception, the Fairfax, Arts Fairfax Awards, the Rest and Chorales concert, which was, it was all African American composers. It was and the soloists were stellar. They were amazing. The young lady, I can remember her first name, but not her last name, Simone, will be singing with the opera. She's doing Serena in Porgy and Bess at the Kennedy Center.
Wow.
The Ollie, I had a performance on my birthday, and some people came. It was very interesting because I said, "Is such no? Is she no?" Because all these people requested songs, and one of them showed up, and he got his song, so that was good. Ibery, the group from Georgia. We had at the UCP a group from Belarus, which was also an a cappella group, the week before. The Sarajevo Haggadah, which was just amazing. But it was really funny because I loved it. The music, it was fantastic and transporting, but I kept worried about the strings of the piano.
Me too.
But with that thing that he used, he didn't break it.
The thing he used was a string off of another piano that was tied into sort of looked like a tennis racket, and he caressed the strings in our piano with that device, and it created a very interesting sound effect.
There were some,
Yeah.
and what she did with the accordion
Yeah, that was
was
pretty,
just amazing.
pretty cool.
Without using the keys, that was a fantastic concert. We had a fall festival over at the church too. I went to the South Gate, and I was there when they recognized Kathy Hudgens, Jan Bradshaw, and Ella Lee for everything that they've done over there. And then they had a dance contest with little tiny kids. It was fascinating. And the one little girl would not make the stage, so they gave her a prize anyway. And then we spent one of my Fridays collecting for cornerstones at Giant, and it was fantastic. We were there. We raised $2,500. We had $2,500 worth of food, and it was really, really so. It really warmed your heart because you would say to people, just bring, just take one thing off the list and put it in your cart. And they would come out with bags of stuff. And they said, well, it was on sale, so I had two. So that was very puzzling. I love Reston.
Caring.
It's a good place to be. Okay, now we come to that interesting part. It's sort of like falling back, springing forward.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
The meeting has now been adjourned. All right, we now will convene the second half of this spectacular evening. The first order of business will be the nominating committee, the proposed officers.
Mr. Keefe and I have conferred.
Put a lot of work into this.
We've put a lot of work into this, and we're proposing the following slate. Bev Caution is to continue as chair. Bill Bowie as vice chair. Lisa Earhart as secretary, and Robert Thomas as treasurer. Are there other thoughts or nominations or whatever to consider?
Congratulations to all.
Oh, no vote has been taken yet.
No.
That's true.
Trying to put the cart before the horse there.
Put it on hold till we see how it
yeah.
comes out. Do you need a motion?
Yes,
I move that the slate be adopted. That's the
Second. It's been moved and second that the slate be adopted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposing? Okay. So we've done that. Now we have to seat you have to change seats.
Yeah, right. No, see, I mean, this is.
This is critical.
This is for your Fitbit, Paul.
Right? This is the seat I was in.
One bald-headed guy for another.
This is
Oh, we can talk about
the
that.
amen corner of the clavicle challenge.
You have no
Wow, please.
idea.
It seems so much ordered.
Well, the order's
this way. Thank you, Matt.
Okay. The new chair's remarks. We're gonna miss Michelle. We're gonna miss what's her name. So rude. That's because she's left. We welcome you, Lori, to this board, and we. She has a packet, doesn't she? Because the whole accreditation stuff that we did in the first part would be interesting for you to see and come up to speed on it, know about it. But we welcome you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Just, I'm honored to be here. I apologize for being late. I've been knocking doors to increase participation in that election that's coming tomorrow.
Thank you.
So, we all need to increase that turnout number as well as our own. So
Yeah.
I am honored to be part of this group. Thank you.
The next order of business is the executive director's report.
Okay, so there are two reports for you. I'll tackle the tougher news, the aquatics report, and the calendar is now really becoming a daily challenge experience. And in fact, we met on last week in a progress meeting, and the substantial completion date has moved again, and not in the right direction. So we have instituted a couple of process changes that will help us help me keep all of you informed, keep the community informed, and keep the different moving parts of the project team on task. They will be sending me a daily progress report from now until the end of the period that ends with substantial completion. They are ahead, and they created a detailed task list for the tasks that need to be completed between now and substantial completion. They're ahead on 2 of those tasks and behind on 1 as of today. And I've been looking, we have of course still the Nest camera, so I've been looking at that a little more frequently. And they did in fact work all weekend this weekend, so that was heartening to see. The big project that is consuming focus right now is movement from what's called the high ceiling part of the natatorium, which is where the warm water pool is, and that's obviously the highest ceiling. They had to deconstruct that scaffolding after finishing all the ceiling work there, and then reinstall it in the lap pool on the other side where the low ceiling is, so they can tackle the electrical and mechanical work on that ceiling, and then the painting and cleanup. So they were supposed to have finished the removal of all that scaffolding today, by today, and then have the tiling begin in the warm water pool. They got most of the scaffolding deconstructed today, but not reconstructed on the lap pool side. And the tiling is off by a day so far. So we'll see how they can catch up on that particular task. The conditions in that warm water pool environment have to be immaculate for the tiling to occur. And not just immaculate, but there can't be anything else on the floor because they have to, all the tile is about a level line. So it has to be level all the way around, and it's pretty painstaking work. So we'll be watching that closely. Tonight you have an opportunity to go look because all of the draping is off, right? So, which will be motivating because having people look at it, literally look at it. We're gonna keep the pool overlook door locked because we don't want people there and creating any kind of unsafe situation there. But you can see quite a bit of it. And it's, so far today, the feedback we've been getting from patrons who have looked at it today because the masking is off, they're pretty excited. They're pretty excited. It's, when you see the size of the pools, it's finally, I think, visually very apparent what the scope of this project is and how significant the improvement's going to be from a pool's perspective. The budget status remains excellent. We project nearly all of the contingency funds will be saved, realized. We will not be moving into the contingency funding. And it's quite possible that there will be additional savings, net savings as well. So we're very comfortable about where we are with the budget. The locker rooms improvements that our anticipated savings are permitting are on track. I think in about a week and a half, those will be all complete. We will have there will be an extensive cleaning of the spa environment while the last work is being done in the primary, the two pools locations, so that even though it's not a new spa, we hope that people will feel like it's new because it will be deep cleaned and it will of course have all new mechanical systems, so it will function much better. And from a patron perspective, I think I mentioned this the last time we met, but our partners have been really, there's a lot of benefit to collaboration and partnership. Tons of benefits, but a profound benefit for us in the way that we relate to our partners is the generosity that Herndon Community Center and the Fairfax County Y have extended to our patrons. Without a blink, they told us they would honor the construction pass as long as it took us to complete the project. And our initial going in premise with them was that we would be our people would be coming back to us in early November. And so they said, take your time, whatever you need, that's fine. The South Lakes High School swim team has arranged with the Park Authority for practice through the middle of December, and we feel pretty comfortable about their ability to be back in our water when their school break occurs, which is the real crunch moment for them. December 23rd, they'll be back in the lap pool. We do think we'll have at least 10 days, if not the 2 weeks we anticipated, to do the welcome home, welcome back special for $1 a swim for people who want to come back and try out the pools before we start our normal operation cycles on January 2nd. And then you get a sneak peek at the artwork, which is in the picture, the image here of the report. The artwork is scheduled to be installed on December 1st, and it's going to be gorgeous. It's really going to be a beautiful focal point on the walls adjacent to the warm water pool. So that's where we are with the...
What is the new completion date?
December 17th.
And that's the, not
Substantial.
substantial, but completion of it.
No, after substantial completion is when every permit has you've passed all your inspections, your health, your fire, and they're doing inspections as they go, electrical, mechanical, plumbing. So you will, at substantial completion, you get the go for occupancy. After that, there's a period of 45 days during which something called commissioning occurs, which is when all the systems that are new, all the mechanical systems that are new, are going to be observed and watched and make sure that they are functioning the way they are supposed to function. They will also need to complete all of there'll be punch list items. There'll be, myriad things that need to be fixed or corrected or touched up or completed. And punch list items, you can have, depending on the quality of the contractor, you can have a punch list item that stays a punch list item for months or weeks. So I don't anticipate that we will have an extensive punch list for this project. They are a really committed and dedicated contractor, and so I would anticipate probably by the end of February, we will have gone through all the commissioning efforts, and the punch list will have been completed, and we'll close it out.
The people will come back to the pool.
December 17th.
On the 18th, right?
Yeah, as soon as we get substantial completion
Next day.
and the go on occupancy, we will start operating our pools.
So substantial completion includes the water in it?
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
you can't do all the inspections.
And the water has to be in it for 5 days. That's really what the final, the calendar of milestones for the next set of tasks is about, it's about 60, 70 milestones long. But the top part of it is stuff that can be done to a certain degree simultaneously. But most of the back end of it, the last things have to be done in sequence. So it takes, because if you recall, we dispensed with doing the leak test, because that would have taken 10 days with emptying it after we filled it. So we don't have to fill it and empty it and fill it and empty it twice because of that. We only need to fill it once. But because it's the first time it's being filled, both pools, they have to be filled slowly.
Sure.
Because if you fill them too fast, the pressure may have a negative impact on the shells. So it'll take about 3 days to fill the pools, and then you, once you fill them, then you have to turn everything on, the pumps, the filters. You have to get the chemistry right. That takes about 5 days.
When does the $1,400 a day penalty start and end?
The $1,400 starts on November 14th.
And we'll go at least through the 17th of December.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to make a difference to the budget.
Well, remember, that's assessed, that is, they don't pay us, we just don't pay them. That's
Yeah, but
assessed
still, it's
on the balance at a rate of $1,400 a day. It's liquidated damages, yeah.
We are foregoing some revenue for that, but. yeah.
Right, that's what it's meant to, I mean, the point of liquidated damages is that by not being open, we are not serving the public, and we're not generating revenue, and we're carrying a cost that we have to carry regardless of whether we're earning revenue. So the value of that was calculated on the basis of our revenue history and our expenditure history, and that was the figure that we came up with and that was agreed to. So, yeah.
Well, at least it's an incentive for them.
Oh, sure, and I really don't believe that this was that the delays These delays all walk back to two things. The first was the existing conditions discoveries, which we knew were a potential problem. It's unfortunate it was a result of a mismatch between drawings, original drawings for the footers for the building and the reality. And then the major one was the subcontractor for the pool specialization crew. They made a commitment to the contractor, Branch Builds, that they would start in the summer at a certain date, and the closer they got to that date, the less obvious that was, and they said, no, it's going to be 5 weeks. As it turns out, it will be about 5 weeks, even though they thought maybe they could double or catch up or weekends. And they have for the last 3 or 4 weeks. They have been bringing crews in on the weekends, and the work crew that the pool subcontractor has on site, Branch asserts is a really fine crew. So it's unfortunate the project's a little late, but the good news is that we have a quality contractor and quality subs, and we have the top echelon of the Department of Public Works looking over their shoulders every day. So I think at the end, we will have an amazing project outcome.
And there's an extreme labor shortage.
There is yeah. I mean,
Any construction.
any construction, and apparently within the pool industry, it's similar to the guard shortage. I mean, there's just an acute shortage of qualified personnel. So.
Too many people vacationing in Spain.
Just looking at Mr. Penman.
No, you didn't even get the
He's busy calculating the liquidated damages too over there.
No, I was just checking the Washington Detroit game. Somebody can lose to Washington.
By the way, it is interesting that the Hunters Woods pool is a 40-year-old pool. They're going through a similar situation, and kind of a reassessment of structural issues, not just simple repair work. It sounds like it's
The RA pool,
Yeah.
you mean?
Yeah.
Lake Thoreau?
I thought it was Lake Thoreau.
Lake Thoreau.
Lake Thoreau, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was like, there's also Hunters Woods.
Hunters
Lake
Woods
Thoreau,
pool
right?
is really new,
Yeah.
relatively speaking. But yeah, I mean, it was miraculous that this pool lasted for 40 years with careful maintenance, but still, 40 years is a long time for a pool.
It is.
And I feel we've said at every single progress meeting for the last 10, 11 months, we want these pools to last for 40 years as well. So. And then I had so much really terrific news about everything that's been going on at RCC in October that I had to use a table and incomplete sentences to put in. Now, this is a real first for
This
me,
rocks my world.
but it's one page, Mr. Bowie, it's one page.
Can we read it?
You can read it.
Yeah.
You can read it. And I urge you, I urge you to read it online, and because the link is live, and I'll send it to you. And check out the RCC YouTube channel. We've had a good, strong, positive reaction to the players' film. Really beautiful piece of work. And what else is in?
What about the schedule, board orientation?
Orientation is on Saturday, the 16th, here at Hunters Woods. We'll be in room 5.
It says 9 a.m. start.
9 a.m.
Until when?
11.
Which building did you say?
Here, in room 5. Also make a note of the reception for Kathy on the 4th. I think that's going to be a very,
Here at Hunters Woods?
yeah, in the community room. We're going to be supporting that with the space, with contribution to the hospitality, and our Young Actors Theater kids are going to sing something appropriate, and there'll be lots of other musical and remembrances. I also sent out to all of you, there are 3 events coming up. The Y event on the 16th of November. Then there's the Leadership Fairfax Luncheon, I think December 6th.
6.
And the Tinsellantinis, please take a look at your calendars and let me know if you're going to attend so I can comply with those organizations' requirements. Okay.
And can I ask about the strategic planning sessions on January 3
Yes,
and 4?
ma'am. We meet in January, the first weekend after New Year's, that Friday afternoon from 2 o'clock until 4 o'clock.
So I apologize, but I am in trial that day, and I hope I will be done by 2 o'clock, but I cannot guarantee
Okay.
it. I didn't know of the schedule conflict.
Yeah.
And the board set to schedule without my input.
Judges are so
Judges are
thoughtless.
so picky that way.
That's okay. And then Saturday, we meet from 10 to 2. And typically, Lori, what we discuss is where we are in terms of work toward our strategic plan objectives. You've seen that document, I think, with the updates on it. So we go over that on Friday. Those materials will be available prior to the session, so if you get a chance to look at it, you can send us questions if you have questions. But the focus of this year's conversations in that planning session, particularly on Saturday, is going to be around the survey, the community needs assessment. So we'll be looking at the results from that and having conversations around those results and what we anticipate the report to include. And then in thinking about the February engagement meeting on the second Monday in February, I think it would be valuable to really make that an event and to create stations, as it were, around the components of our strategic plan and the concerns that were addressed by the needs assessment, and have some facilitation and conversation, share the film about RCC, combine it with a kind of celebration of our 40 years, and really try to generate a significant level of participation in that conversation. And that's the second Monday in February at 6:30.
And I'm sorry, January 3rd, starting 2 o'clock and end?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, thank you.
Is that all right? Are we going to use the RA facilities?
Well, probably, we could, we need to remember that we have to meet in a location that public can easily attend if they want. So there aren't that many of those in Weston. I personally would love to meet here, but we've always gone away.
We've gone away.
No, we haven't gone far for a long time. So I will check with Ari, but I'd rather meet here, to be frank.
If you open it up, there's plenty of room.
There's plenty of room, and we'll have to see if we have space, but we'll find a space, and it'll either be here or there.
Well, one thing in here, you said that the survey results are going to be delayed because of
No,
COVID or something?
no, we'll get a preliminary report for December, and then we'll have the final report.
It just says change order. I thought
Oh,
that
we,
usually
thank you.
means-
No, we did a change order. This was significant. There were over 162 pages of open ends. Remember the comment options? And in reading through them, it was clear to me that there were themes there, and it would be well worth trying to get CSR to tell us if I'm right, that there were themes that were emerging. And in that conversation, they told me they can code, which means, segregating sets of responses that are similar enough to be the same response, open-end expression, for us. And they propose coding all of the open ends that have that capacity for a total of about $5,000. So I did authorize that, because I think it's very worthwhile to get what the sense of those comments are in aggregate, where they're dispositive to the actual question data points. So that's what the change order is to allow them to do that. And I think, like the whole thing, much better to have the Center for Survey Research do that than to have the staff do it, because then the people can always say, well, how did you come up with that?
Right, that makes sense.
Right. That's what that is. Thanks
Yes.
for.
Okay. Is there any other new business?
Move to adjourn.
Well, the only thing I wanted to say for new business, and Laurie said it before, make sure you vote.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's very important.
Some of us
Yeah,
have
yeah.
already voted.
That's what he said, he's always voted.
Say a little loud.
He moved
I vote
to
to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved to second, all those in favor?
Aye.
And those who want to go home?
Let's get out of here.
Oh, I know, really.
So by the way,
Yes, you can go look at the pool.